continuation of my little mini solved series. Last week was the second video I've done in this series so far, and you guys are still loving it to the point where I'm pretty sure I'm going to be continuing this. This case especially has a lot of lessons to learn, and I know that I've said that in every single one I've done so far, but it's crazy once you start digging into these solved cases. You get to see sometimes where foul play was involved, you get to see sometimes where it wasn't, you get to kind of create opinions along the way before you really know what happened, and there's a lot to learn from that. Today's video is on Toni Anderson. She was a 20-year-old girl. She was absolutely beautiful. She was independent, she was loving, she was hardworking, she had a long-term boyfriend, and she had a ton of plans for her future. She worked at a club and she also was a music blogger. She had just recently made a ton of different plans to travel. I'm pretty sure from what I read, her boyfriend and her even moved out to the area they were in Kansas City just so they could kind of keep tabs on different music festivals. And she was just about to start classes at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. She was a young girl going after her dreams, and then unfortunately she went missing. And the circumstances around it are absolutely heartbreaking. On January 15th, 2017, at about 4 a.m., she was finishing up her shift at a club that she worked at. It was super early in the morning. She had just gotten off, and she had made plans to meet with some of her friends across town at another club called the Shady Lady. So when she got off work, she was actually walked out by one of the security guards there. She did work at an adult entertainment club, so as you guys know, that can be kind of a dangerous situation at times. A lot of women get preyed on. Obviously, the security guard went to measures to make sure she was safe getting to her car and to make sure that nobody followed her. She was about to run out of gas. She had stated this to a couple people she had been working with that night, and she had told everyone her plans were to go to the nearest gas station, and then she planned on going over to the Shady Lady to hang out with a couple of friends, and then she planned on returning to her apartment where she lived with her boyfriend. However, she never made it to the Shady Lady, and she also never made it home. Last anyone ever heard from her was that same morning at 4:42 in the morning. She sent a text message to one of her close friends saying, "Oh my gosh, I just got pulled over again." This raised a lot of bells for a lot of people. All of her plans and all of her excitement, there was not a single person that knew her and cared about her that believed that she would have just run away, disappeared purposefully. There was no sign at all that she had a plan to leave. All of her belongings, everything she cared about was still at home, including her boyfriend that she had a great relationship with. There were no indications that she would have wanted to run away or escape the life that she was currently living. The only thing they really had to go off of is that she left her job at 4 in the morning, and then at 4:42, she sent a text message saying she was pulled over by a police officer, and then she was never heard from again and was never seen at any of the places she planned on going afterwards. However, it became a really confusing and terrifying situation pretty quickly when police said they had absolutely no record of Toni being pulled over that morning. This alarmed a ton of people. Apparently at that time in the area, they had a ton of people who were impersonating cops with lights, with sirens. I'm not exactly sure if there was a purpose behind it. I don't know if it was some sort of way to stop people for human trafficking. I don't know if it was something that big or if it was as simple as someone playing pranks, but they were having a huge issue with that. Knowing that the last thing that she said was that she was pulled over, yet the police had no record of it, was terrifying. However, that following Tuesday, a police officer did come forward and say that he was the one who had pulled Toni over. And as much as I wish that would lead to answers as to what happened, unfortunately, it just ended up leading to more questions. According to the police officer, Toni told him that she was about to run out of gas, and so he pointed her into the direction of the nearest gas station, where he watched her enter the gas station and then eventually left. This doesn't seem too questionable or strange at first. However, this really didn't lead them to any answers, and a lot of people were wondering why police had no record, and then all of a sudden they did. First, the cops said that there was no record of her being pulled over, and all of a sudden, out of thin air, there's someone that came forward that said that she was. Because of this kind of questionable information and way things laid out, friends decided to start petitioning for the dash cam footage to be released to the public. They got over 2,500 signatures, which to me is crazy. However, being an open investigation, police refused to release any of the dash cam footage to anyone and said that they would never do that until the case was closed. So basically, the police station made themselves look sketchy by having no record of her, and then suddenly having a record of her, and then refusing to release footage. So at this point, a ton of theories started flowing. Friends started to 100% believe that whatever happened to Toni involved the police department itself, and things just kind of spiraled downhill from there. Everyone started springing into action in hopes of finding Toni on their own. They started printing out flyers. They started, I'm pretty sure, a Facebook page. They all got together. They had a meeting point where they were all going to search in the area that she was last seen. They were really trying to find any information they could on their own. Her boyfriend even set up a GoFundMe page. I'm pretty sure it was meant for a private investigator. That's what the money was to go towards. And there was just a lot of friends and family that loved her and knew this was out of character, that were trying so hard to figure out what was happening, because the fact that someone goes missing directly after talking with a police officer is kind of frightening. Detectives decided to check her bank account to see if she had ever actually gone to the gas station that the police officer claims that he sent her to and watched her enter. There were 2 attempts on her card at this gas station at 4:33. So she had been to the gas station. Her card was declined. I don't think that really says much at all, but she definitely was there, or at least her card was there from what they knew at this point. They also received information from her insurance company on her car that she had in fact been tracked to this gas station. However, right afterwards, something happened with the GPS, and at first they didn't know if it malfunctioned, if she took it off, but either way, it completely stopped working. They also checked her phone, and the last place a signal was sent off from was English Landing Park, which was about 10 miles away from where she was last seen. And this would eventually lead them to a bunch of heartbreaking answers that nobody wanted to hear. Then something huge happened, something that everyone had been waiting for. The dash cam footage was finally released from the police department, and a completely different idea of the story started to unfold. I'm going to add in right here a couple of clips from the footage, and then I'm going to kind of summarize it afterwards because it's a little bit difficult to hear.
609 being a violation, 26 in Burlington.
Violation.
Being a white, correction, black Ford Focus. Morning.
How are you?
Fine. Where are you trying to go to?
I'm about to go downtown. I live down there.
You live downtown?
Yeah.
Where you come from?
Downtown. I live at, I was working at Chrome tonight. So.
Hey, Chrome?
Yeah.
You drinking?
No.
You're heading the wrong way on the street.
I know. I'm about to head that way.
Which way? This way?
Well, yeah, I know. I was about to head towards, Shady, but...
Shady.
Yes.
What's Shady?
Shady Lady.
Shady Lady?
Yeah.
You know where you're at now?
Yeah.
Where?
I'm at, I was about to head towards Shady, but, yeah.
Driver's license, insurance. You're heading the wrong way.
Well, yeah, I know.
No,
I'm about to head that way.
This is a two-way street. You're on the full left side of the street, heading to oncoming traffic. Huh? Not funny.
I'm sorry.
That's why I'm asking you if you've been drinking. Have you taken any medications or anything?
No, I'm just really sick. I don't feel good. So.
Okay. Stay right here for me, okay? Toni,
Yeah.
do me a favor. Pull in that parking lot, sit there for a while, gather yourself.
Okay.
So when it clears, I'm going to make sure the light turns, go there and park yourself, sit.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Because you're nowhere near and you're facing the wrong direction.
I know, you just made me really nervous. I'm sorry.
I understand. So pull over there and gather yourself, okay?
Thank you.
So as you saw from that footage, he asked her a couple of questions, asked her where she was going, asked her where she came from, and notified her that she was on the wrong side of the road. As you saw from the footage yourself, she was all the way over in the left lane, but it was a two-way road, meaning she was facing oncoming traffic. When he told her this, she started kind of giggling, and he told her it wasn't funny, to which she apologized. He asked her multiple times if she was under the influence of any sort of drug or alcohol because she was slurring her speech really badly. She was kind of running around in circles with her answers. He would ask her something and she would answer a question that he asked before that. It was just kind of a jumbled mess. So, as you also saw in the video, after he witnessed her state that she was in, he then told her to go drive into the gas station across the road and sit there while she gathered herself. The cop then followed Toni and sat in a business parking lot across the street for a total of 7 minutes. From what I saw in the footage, you see her enter, he's still watching her, and then you see her exit. And once he sees her exit and get into her vehicle, he then proceeds to leave. At first, they were worried that the text message saying, "Oh my gosh, I got pulled over again," meant she had been pulled over the first time by this cop, and then maybe one of these fake cops came up and did something to her. However, now that the dash cam footage was released, they were able to rule that out because the police officer was sitting there staring at her vehicle, staring at her while she sent this text message. So that threw one of the biggest current theories out to the side. Security footage from the gas station itself shows Toni's car pulling over onto the wrong side of the road facing oncoming traffic and then just sitting there for 12 minutes. 12 minutes. That is a long time. And then a cop just so happened to pull up behind her and find her. After that, you see her enter the gas station. She walks in seemingly fine. She doesn't appear to be too intoxicated, so you can't really tell from the footage what exactly was going on. And she goes back to her car, gets gas, and that's that. All of this footage combined created a whirlwind of anger from every single person that knew her and loved her, and most of the community, honestly. Toni's mother, Liz, came forward and said she was absolutely infuriated. She admitted that from looking at the footage, hearing the dash cam, that her daughter was absolutely hammered, and those are her exact words. She immediately knew that her daughter was under the influence of something. And she was so incredibly angry, and everyone was so incredibly angry that this police officer just let her go. And it's obvious that he knew something was wrong because he did in fact just tell her to go and gather herself. Granted, from the dash cam footage, she did tell him she was just nervous and that she wasn't feeling well, but at the same time, I feel like police officers have seen situations like that enough to know the difference between someone just being nervous and someone being possibly intoxicated or under the influence of drugs. Liz said that she wishes the cop had just arrested her daughter and taken her to jail instead of just letting her go and sit in a parking lot to essentially sober up, which is basically what the police officer did. A ton of other law enforcement from different areas were completely disgusted with the way that this police officer acted. However, the Kansas City Police Department decided to stand beside their officer and say that he did the best with the situation that he could. That he took all the information into consideration and he made the best decision from the information that he had gathered. Toni's parents then hired a private search team that used sonar so that they could search by the river where her phone was last pinged at. Pretty soon after starting their search, they did find an image of a vehicle. Interestingly enough, they did actually find an image of a second vehicle, which is completely unrelated to the case, but I know I'm going to get comments on it, so I just want to throw that out there. There were 2 vehicles that were found in this river. One of them is not related, but unfortunately, one of them was Toni's vehicle. They immediately notified authorities, and then on March 10th, it was officially declared that her car had been found in this river. The car was found near a boat ramp, and it was completely submerged, and there was a body of a female inside of the car, which they did confirm was in fact Toni. The medical examiner did determine that it was an accidental death, and the cause was hypothermia.
Well, Brad, earlier today, a Jackson County medical examiner did say that Toni Anderson's death was an accident. This is the report that was released earlier, and it shows that Anderson drowned in the Missouri River. This was the scene here in Parkville more than 2 months ago. Toni Anderson's black Ford Focus pulled from the river after the 20-year-old had disappeared in January. This 8-page report outlines how the college student died. On the first page, you can see her cause of death was drowning and hypothermia.
However, he also found that alcohol, cocaine, and amphetamines were in her system at the time of her death. All of the drugs and alcohol together would explain the confusion. It would explain why she was speaking the way she was to the police officer, why she ended up on the wrong side of the road. It would explain their theory of what exactly happened to her. They think that she was in some sort of panicked state after talking to the police officer. They believe she was trying to drive to the Shady Lady. However, she got turned around, mixed up, confused, got lost. They think her GPS possibly led her the wrong direction, and she attempted to turn around at the end of basically this dead-end road, which unfortunately was also a boat ramp. When it's dark outside on this boat ramp, it just looks like a road. You can't tell that there's water on the other side. You can't really tell where you're driving. And being that it was 30 degrees early that morning with wind chill into the 20s, I think that she tried to turn around on the boat ramp, hit a patch of ice, and drove directly into the water, which would have basically put her body into shock even more so when added on to all of those drugs. She only had small bruises on her knee, which appeared to have happened before she passed away, and then she had a few cuts to her abdomen with glass in them, I'm assuming from crashing into the water, and that did appear to happen after she had passed away. The car was still in drive, and she was laying inside of the vehicle, and the driver's side window was down, which says to me that maybe she was possibly trying to get out. However, again, being under the influence of drugs and alcohol and the freezing cold temperatures, she really didn't have much of a chance. When this news came up, obviously everyone was devastated, but the mother came forward and said that she was thankful that she even had closure. I mean, you look at all the cases that we've just talked about, and that's only a fraction of the missing person cases in just the United States alone, and then I've slowly branched into other areas, but most missing persons cases don't really have a lot of closure. And her mother said that she was thankful it was at least accidental and there was no foul play involved, which is completely understandable. And the mother and family in general also believes that this is absolutely what happened. They don't believe there is any foul play involved. They can see exactly how this would have happened. They've even gone down to describing why she would have had the bruise on her knee. Apparently where the bruise was, her knee would have hit the GPS that had been on the car, tracking its movements, which would have knocked it out, which would have explained the bruise and explained why the GPS stopped transmitting. It was just a series of extremely, extremely tragic and unfortunate events. But this is where we start to learn lessons from this case. Theories in this case were not lacking. There were a ton of theories, and unfortunately, there still are, even though the case is closed. People believe that the cops 100% had to do something with it. They acted very sketchy throughout the entire investigation. However, if you think about it, if you pulled over someone that you knew was under the influence, but you weren't really aware of how much exactly, and you wanted to give them a break, and so you said, look, you got lucky this time, I'm gonna be a nice police officer and send you over to the parking lot to kind of get yourself together. If you did that and then that person was immediately afterwards suddenly missing, I understand how the police would want to kind of cover that up a little bit, obviously. You know, she could have been stopped. Her life could have been saved had the police done his job the way he was supposed to. You know, a lot of people thought that this police officer pulled her over and then planned for another police officer to pull her over. She was an attractive young girl. People think that they maybe preyed on her. I mean, there were so many different theories just with the police alone that it is absolutely insane. The mother at one point was even 100% convinced that it had something to do with human trafficking. Then we get into the not so great theories. Not that those other theories were necessarily great, but this is where there's like a serious line that should have been drawn. Her boyfriend's arrest records were pulled by a bunch of amateur online sleuths. And I know I really have no room to talk about that because that is pretty much what I do. However, there is such thing as respect, and these people did not follow that whatsoever. His arrest records were pulled up and he had some drug-related charges in his past, and so he started being brutally attacked by these online sleuths saying that his GoFundMe was set up so he could feed his addiction. I mean, they went in on this poor guy who was struggling with the fact that his girlfriend had not been seen or heard from. Her father was accused of embezzling money. They said that she planned her own death to become famous and for money. There is even a Facebook page that is literally still going on of people that think this is all a big lie and there was murder and foul play involved. And while I understand wanting to make sure everyone gets justice, cases like this, people are drawing the line. And when a family has openly stated that they 100% believe the findings and they support them and they are now trying to heal and they are trying to mourn for their loved one and, you know, figure out a way to keep on living life on a day-to-day basis, you don't push the limits. You don't do things that could bring them more harm. You don't keep dragging their child's name into crazy theories over and over and over again. I understand being curious. I understand wanting to be helpful, but there is a respectful way to do it and there are lines to be drawn. And I think I've gotten extremely lucky that all of my subscribers have been amazing. No one has done anything slightly inappropriate, but I've had a few people come to me and they've asked me questions about how in particular to deal with missing persons cases and how to relay the information. This is a prime example of how not to do it. You can share the information, you can be respectful, you can cover theories that are believed by police or things that are not harmful to someone who could know this person and hurt from it. If you have a theory that could potentially harm someone, go to the police with it. Don't spew it all across the internet. Don't create false claims so it seems more possible. That's not appropriate, period. There is a respectful way of doing things, and this unfortunately is an example of a case where people kind of went crazy. And this is an example of a case where people just won't let it go when a family is just trying to move on from it. So that is the biggest lesson to learn here. Second lesson that I think everyone needs to take from this story is that do not drink and drive. Do not do drugs and drive. It's not worth it. It is not worth it at all. Get an Uber, call a friend, call family. I've talked about this before. There are so many other options out there and it can save your life. This could be you. This could be someone you love. This could be anybody. You know, be responsible and do the best you can to keep yourself safe and make smart decisions. The last thing that I think everyone needs to learn from this situation is that cops are there for a reason. This is a prime example of what would happen if cops didn't do their job right. I think everyone right now really wants to pay attention to all the bad the cops are doing, which I am not going to deny does exist. However, there are hundreds of thousands of cops that are doing their job, and while handing out tickets and doing this and doing that kind of seems minuscule in the scheme of all the bad going on, this could be hundreds of other people. This could have happened to thousands of other people had cops not been pulling people over for DUIs or, you know, wrong lane changes. This was first seen as an illegal lane change. You know, even though this cop himself, I personally don't think did his job correctly, I think we need to be appreciative and be aware that there are still cops out there that are preventing things like this from happening. Don't get angry when you get pulled over for drinking. Don't get angry when you get pulled over for speeding. Don't get angry when you do something wrong and the people that are there to protect us stop you from doing it. It's not to be mean to you. It's not to ruin your day. It's so you don't end up in a position like this. And as silly as that might sound, just be aware that when you do something wrong, there's reasons for the consequences. There's reasons you're taken to jail when you get a DUI. There are reasons that you get a ticket and fined for speeding, because it's not just laws made up for the hell of it. It's laws made up to prevent harm on everyone, which is exactly what happened in this case. And when it's not followed, this is a prime example of how you can be harmed, and it's heartbreaking and it's tragic. And while we can't change what happened to this poor girl, we can make good decisions for ourselves. And I really wanted to put that message out in this video. I hope you guys learned something from this video. I hope you took something away from this. And if you have a second, just in your own mind, send positive thoughts and positive vibes to her family, to everyone who loved her. I send all of my love and all of my thoughts to the family. I know that is not ever something anyone hopes or thinks they will ever have to hear or go through. Thank you guys so much for watching this. I'm glad you're enjoying the Solved series. Don't forget to check out all of my social media links listed down below. Hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.